Hey guys, so I'm going to go through the notes for 11.3 with you, and hopefully this helps you understand what we're going to be doing today. So this still kind of goes off of 11.2 with the excluded values and such. We're also going to talk about simplifying things. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so in section 11.3, we're going to be talking about rational expressions now. So we're going to talk about simplifying these. So this is just basically when you have a fraction whose numerator and denominator are polynomials. So we are going to be factoring in this lesson using either greatest common factor or the factoring methods that we've already talked about. So we've talked a little bit about this already, about how to state the excluded values. As a reminder, that means what makes the denominator equal 0. So this is a little bit hard to solve the way that it is, because if you'll notice in the denominator of these two examples, they are polynomials. It's not just a basic like x plus 3 or something like that. So we are going to start with example A, negative 8 over r squared minus 36. And we are actually going to factor the denominator. So if you remember factoring, we're going to rewrite this as r squared plus 0r to make up for that middle term that we don't have, minus 36. So whenever you're factoring, you're always looking at the last number here, which in this case is negative 36, and you're trying to figure out what can I multiply that will give me negative 36 and add to 0. And those two numbers would be the numbers that go here. So normally we would make the long factor list. That was a lot of stuff to try to type out, but if you need to go back and look, we did factoring a while ago. So if you have extra questions on that, please reach out to me. So anyway, what multiplies to negative 36 but adds to 0 would be positive 6 and negative 6. So this is me factoring the denominator right here. So what you actually have is negative 8 over r minus 6 times r plus 6. Now you can actually simplify find the excluded values by setting each one of these equal to 0. Okay, so you've got r minus 6 equals 0, and you've got r plus 6 equals 0. If I solve those, I get 6 and negative 6 as my excluded values. Okay. So for example B, you'll notice again that you've got n squared plus 4n minus 5. We need to factor this denominator. So we're asking ourselves, what two numbers can I multiply to get negative 5 that when I add them up gives me 4? So those two numbers would be 5 and negative 1, because if I multiply those, 5 times negative 1, that's negative 5. If I add those, 5 plus negative 1, that's going to give me positive 4. So I've got n squared over this new denominator now, which is what I've written right here, n plus 5 over n minus 1, or sorry, times n minus 1. So each one of these things represents an excluded value. So I'm going to set each one of these equal to 0, n plus 5 equals 0, and n minus 1 equals 0, and then I'm going to solve those. So my excluded values would end up being negative 5 and positive 1. So that is factoring to find your excluded values, and we can also take this a step further by simplifying these. So this is essentially factoring on top and bottom and trying to solve it that way. So we're going to do two examples over this. I'm going to do one on a slide at a time, just to make it a little easier to read. So we're going to go with A first. We've got 2r plus 18 over r squared plus 8r minus 9. So the first thing that you're going to have to do here is not only factor the bottom, but also factor the top. On the top, this is just a greatest common factor, or undo the distributive property. 2r and 18 have 2 in common. So if I factored that out, what I would have left over would be r plus 9. Remember, if you multiply this back together, you should get what you started with. So 2 times r would be 2r, 2 times 9 would be that 18. On the bottom, you're doing the same factoring that we did already, which is asking yourself, what two numbers can I multiply to get negative 9 that when I add those two numbers, I get positive 8? So that would be positive 9 and negative 1. If I multiply those, I get negative 9. If I add those, I get positive 8. So this is my new factored form of my question. I haven't done anything yet except for factor these. Okay, now what you'll notice is that you do have an r plus 9 on the top and on the bottom. So we are going to cancel these like factors. And this is all you're doing that's different to simplify this. So you're going to cancel the like factors. Those are going to drop out. And what you have left is just 2 and r minus 1. So 2 over r minus 1 is going to be your simplified answer. Now, it is also going to ask you for the excluded values. Excluded values come from whatever was in the bottom, no matter what was canceled out. So that means that both r plus 9 and r minus 1 generate an excluded value. Because even though it canceled out, it was still there at some point, so we can't forget about it. So I'm going to set each one of those equal to 0, and I would have two excluded values of positive 1 and negative 9. Okay. For example B, we've got y squared plus 9y minus 10 that I can factor, and also in the denominator 2y plus 20. So on the top, I'm asking myself, what can I multiply to get negative 10 that adds up to positive 9? So those two numbers would be a positive 10 and a negative 1. If I multiply those, I get negative 10. If I add those, I get positive 9. In the denominator, I've got 2y plus 20. Again, that is going to be greatest common factor. Undo the distributive property there, and you're going to end up getting 2 times y plus 10. So again, looking for things that are like factors, which we see both of these have a y plus 10, so we're going to cancel those out. And so you're just left with y minus 1 over 2. Now again, your excluded values come from the denominator no matter what canceled out. So even though these y plus 10s canceled, that still generates an excluded value. You can go back to the beginning and set that equal to 0. 2y plus 20 equals 0 and solve from there. So if you subtract 20 from both sides, you would have 2y equals negative 20. If you divided by 2, you would end up getting an excluded value of negative 10. There's only one there. So I hope this helps understand more about the simplifying. Again, if you're having issues factoring, this might be a struggle, so please reach out to me if you need a factoring refresher. Your homework is only going to be 7 questions. Most of it has to do with excluded values. These questions right here, 22 through 24, are going to be simplifying and then stating the excluded values. So notice that these are all questions, so 12, 13, 14, 15, and then 22, 23, 24, not just the odds. So I hope that helps. And if you need anything as far as the factoring and extra stuff goes, let me know. Don't forget to submit your assignment on Google Forms, and that's how your attendance will be taken as well. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I hope you guys have a good day.